Hey everybody, Scott Kelby here, and joining me today, RC Concepcion.
What's going on, everybody?
Mr. Brad Moore.
What's up?
And we're on the set of The Grid, but this is not an episode of The Grid.
No, it's not.
It was just very easy for us to be able to tape on the set today, so that's why we're over here. So we are here with my first field report from shooting some football games this weekend with the Canon 7D Mark II. It hasn't even come out yet, and I got a chance to shoot some games this weekend. So
this is it's based on a lot of responses for what you guys do on social media. What happens is, and figured I'd kind of give it a little bit of context if you don't mind, but when these cameras kind of come out, companies like Canon will come to you and say, can you go out and can you take this camera out? Right?
Yeah, I was very happy to, actually.
But they'll send you out, but they're sending you out to be able to get data for themselves.
Yeah, they want to hear what's good, what's bad. They want to hear the truth. They want to.
Okay. So as a process of all of that stuff, you're going out and you're shooting most of that stuff, and there's a lot of people that are on the blog, on Facebook, and on your website that are asking you questions about this stuff, and you want to kind of give them an update. And I think that's one of those things where we want to be able to color most of this stuff a little bit accurately and say, you're doing this on behalf of Canon to give them feedback on what the camera feels like and what it's been doing.
So let me tell you what this is. So what the cameras I shot, these are pre-production cameras.
Okay.
So this is not the final camera that will be shipping.
Right.
Whenever it ships, I guess. What was it?
November?
Estimated delivery date was November.
Sometime in November. Okay. So this is not the shipping camera.
Right.
This is a pre-production demo model, and I borrowed two of them. Now, when I say borrowed, I had them for, I think, 36 hours.
Right.
So because there's not a whole lot of these pre-production ones floating around. So had it for 36 hours, and we already shipped one of them out, and this one we have until the minute the show is over.
Right.
So we're just hanging on to these. So I got a chance, and they want to hear good and bad, and that's what we're going to share with you today.
Right. And
I want to give you the real world experience because I don't have a lab. And I'm not a lab guy. I know that there are people that want to get in and crunch every little pixel, but I would rather tell you, here's how the shoot went down. Here's what I liked. Here's what I didn't like. Here's, and just really give you the real world field test instead of a lab test, because I'm not a lab test guy.
Right, and at the same time, you're not just necessarily shooting this. You obviously this is not for sports, but you're also not shooting. You're shooting other things aside from sports.
Yeah, I am. But this one, I got to shoot with it, and I'll show you some images here in a minute. I got to shoot with it. I did a bridal shoot with it. I did a landscape shoot with it.
Okay.
And the reason why is when I was talking to Canon, when they're telling me about this camera, and we're talking about the specs and all, we're going over it, and I said, I know that you are marketing this camera for sports and wildlife,
right?
But I happen to know that this camera will take a picture of whatever you aim it at.
Right.
And I said, this would be great for weddings. This would be great for landscapes. I started to listen to things, and they go, well, do you want to try it out? So before this weekend, I got a chance to have an earlier unit, and I got to do some of those. I'll show you some of those images in a minute. In fact, let me see if I can just dig them up. I might be able to show them to you right now while we're talking about it.
Well, while you're doing that, I figured also just doing a little bit of housekeeping here, you are taking all of the information and you're stripping metadata off of it?
Yeah, so because it's not a real shipping, when I post these on my blog, Canon was like, well, don't put this out there. It's not the finished camera. They're still baking it. It's still in the labs. They're still working on it. Okay. So I stripped out all the metadata.
And that's true of any camera that goes out, any pre-production models. Doesn't matter the brand or anything.
Yeah, if it's Nikon, Sony,
they're like Joe, same thing happened.
And that was and I know you're talking about the camera, you're talking about all these different kinds of things. I just think that a lot of the times you guys as readers probably want to see a little bit of kind of behind the scenes and what happens with most of this stuff. So rather than just go, here's a camera, here's some pictures, this is what happened, let's talk to you a little bit about why it came. It came because they wanted feedback on what they thought of a pre-production. That's why we remove the metadata.
Oh, yeah.
You shoot different jobs, and of that, you'll go, this is what's good, this is what's bad.
Yeah.
And there were both
improving.
Improving.
Yeah, no. Because I got to tell you, my first impressions overall, I already liked it because I did the bridal thing. But after shooting the game yesterday, my mind is blown. I want to get to that in a minute.
So let's see the bridal thing because you have it up.
Okay, so here's some bridal shots. These were taken with an even earlier production model.
Okay.
So this is, I'm going to answer this right off the bat. This is 1600 ISO. 1600 ISO now, on a crop sensor.
Why are you answering that off the bat?
Because that's all anybody wants to talk about. Every question. So I went on Facebook and said, hey, yesterday, hey guys, what questions do you want to hear answered about it? Noise. So we'll talk a lot more about that in sports because I was only able to push it. These images that I'm going to show you from the bridal part of this were 1600, 800, 400. I think that's as low as I got.
Okay.
So
Was this
everything
available
was
light?
some was available light, some were with flash.
Okay.
And so the interesting thing is that like people are talking to me about the 7D. I never had a 7D. All right. So I never had one. I have a 70D, but I don't have a 7D.
Right.
And people are telling me that they have a 7D and they're like 400 is my limit. Like if I go over above 400, it's too much noise.
Okay.
So this is 1600, and I'll take you through. These are basically anywhere between, I think 400 and 8 to 1600. There might be a 200 stuck in here someplace.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, thank you.
I like
Very
that.
kind.
I like that. I like that. That not so much.
No,
that.
she's way back.
No, I know,
there.
I see that. I was just
see that's fake light. That's not fake light. It's the art of it's a strobe.
Okay.
It's a strobe. And so
All
what
right.
we do is we take the shot and then we have the guy with the strobe hide. So one shot has the strobe, one shot doesn't have the strobe, and then you put them together in Photoshop.
Nice.
So you don't see him standing there with this. It would be a pretty poor shot to see him standing there with a softbox. So some is natural light and some is
I like that.
is that, right? And I'm not going to spend too much time on these.
basically what you're showing here is, yes, this thing can hold its own at a wedding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so let me see if I got anything. Okay, so that's that. And I mentioned landscape. I'm going to flip over to that real quick. Let me just blast over here, and we'll hit some landscape. I was in Maine and got to do a little just landscapey stuff.
Nice.
Well, I didn't have the greatest landscapey weather. You know,
That's
like
okay.
virtually no clouds and stuff.
But I mean, you're going out, and you know what? And it's one of those things where I'll give you credit on this, in that you're not just necessarily keeping an interaction with Canon. You're turning around, and you're going, all right, I'm going to kick the tires. I'm going to go out there.
Oh
and
yeah,
just
dude!
try
I
it
put this thing through
to
its
see
paces.
what happens.
I shot all kinds of stuff. So,
Yeah,
and I shot a lot of family photos. They did all kinds of different stuff with it. So these are just some shots I took on vacation in Maine.
So it did okay in weddings. It did okay in landscape.
Oh, I think it did really, really well at both of them.
But let's go to what people really want to know
All
right now, which
all
is the football
Yeah,
side
because
of it.
what this camera was designed for sports, and it was designed for
Wildlife.
for wildlife. Thank you, thank you. And Brad was with me. So we shot 2 games this weekend.
Okay.
We shot the Tennessee Vols, and let me tell you what, I had to shoot 2 games back to back. Brad was with me for the Vols game. And we did a little bit of remote stuff. We rigged up a camera. Now, I had more camera bodies, or more things to do than I had camera bodies. So I put a 5D Mark III on a monopod
With a fisheye.
with a fisheye
And a pocket wizard.
and a pocket wizard. We did that, and the 5D Mark III. I'm sorry, Canon. That is not a sports camera. That buffer would fill so fast. I'd go click, 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 click. Well, it didn't go that fast. I'd go click, 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 click. Full.
You hope somebody doesn't do something cool there at that point.
Yeah,
You're just kinda waiting.
it was like the
Okay.
buffer filled. This thing's got a good buffer. I think this does, and I could be wrong, but it's well over 100 JPEGs.
Okay.
Before the, so you can go.
Because most of the time when you're shooting sports, you're shooting JPEG. You're not necessarily shooting RAW for on-field action.
By the way, every image that you will see and every image that you have seen are all JPEGs.
Okay.
Because I don't have a RAW converter that'll open it yet. It's not shipping.
There's not one that exists.
There's not one that exists yet. There will
All
be,
JPEG.
but right now I can't open a RAW.
Okay.
So I have a bunch of RAWs I look at and I think, well, there's the icon.
Pretty
Just a
pretty
bunch of
soon it'll look great.
Yeah, pretty soon it'll look great. So everything I'm showing today is JPEG. So can I start off by showing you a print? We made a print. This is from yesterday's Giants game. And it looks absolutely beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah. That's 1000 ISO. And when Brad printed it out, he said, if you hadn't told me it was in 1000 ISO, you would never know.
Here,
I
I'm just
didn't
gonna
look
go
at
ahead
it when
and I'm going to set it up one
You're
more
like,
time
get this
here.
printed fast. So I just opened it and printed. I didn't check the
Yeah, he just
metadata
opened it
or
and printed. He didn't
anything.
look at the metadata. It's 1000.
That's pretty. Now, who is this?
That is Eli Manning. Oh, it's just a
Oh.
random guy. Just a random guy.
Just on the
Okay.
street.
Yeah, I was actually there shooting for the Falcons. I liked the shot. You know what it was? So I used auto ISO yesterday. And so what I can do here is, it is important to me that the shutter speed never falls below 1/1000th of a second. So I set auto ISO to never let my shutter fall below 1/1000th. Now I used to just ride it. I used to just kind of keep an eye out. And there were so many times where a great shot would happen, and I let the shutter, I wasn't watching it close enough. And even if it falls to 800th of a second or 1/640, it's blurry. So by using auto ISO and setting my minimum allowable shutter speed at 1/1000th, it is impossible to take a photo under 1/1000th of a second. And 1/1000th of a second is where you freeze motion.
Okay.
So it can go as high as it needs to, or No lower than 1/1000th.
Okay, so now let's stop for 1 second there.
Yes.
On the print,
Yeah.
how big was that print, Brad? Because you just printed it.
The paper is 17 by 22, so whatever the image. I mean, it's a little smaller than the paper.
Yeah.
The only reason that I call that out is because a lot of the times I think that one of the biggest considerations that people have when they make the print is they'll usually say, well, APS-C, crop sensors, like you want full, you want big size. And I'm like, that's a 17 by 22. I'd probably argue that you could have pushed that a little bit bigger if you wanted.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Oh, dude, we could have gone way bigger. It's 24 megapixels.
So
I didn't
see-
resize it from what Scott sent me.
No, that's the original native file.
That's a
That thing's 24
240p.
megapixels. You can make as big as you want.
That's
Right.
240 DPI. I didn't resize it.
So at that point, so you've got a lot of stuff to play with. So I just thought that was cool to be able to bring
All right.
up.
I'm just
Now-
going to. I want to show some samples real quick.
Okay, let's do
And
that.
then these are just from. I saw the Vols game, and I'm just going to whip through them real quickly. But can I show you something? Because I think the image quality. I mean, I know everybody's concerned about noise, but also the image quality. Let me zoom in really tight. Look at this. The image quality is really nice. Look at the detail.
And what lenses were you shooting with?
So shooting with a
I gotta see that
70
one
to
more time.
200.
I was like,
70 to 200
Are
areas.
you kidding me?
70 to 200, a 200 to 400 with a 1.4 tele. Those are my main two. I also shot a few with a 16 to 35. Look, you can see like the little fringe on his, And so I'll just take you through a few real quick. But nice, sharp detail. I think I
Cool.
need to back off just a hair because I was about to say,
I was like,
ball
whoa,
wasn't
My
cut
framing
off.
wasn't that bad.
My framing was not that bad. Oh, I have some. I had a receiver jump up for a ball yesterday, and I completely cut his head off. It was just terrible. I'm going to use it for a demotivation.
I like
post.
that.
I'm just going to take you through them real quickly. You know what's bad is when you have celebration photos that no one will ever see because they lost.
By one stinking point.
One stinking point. I'm a Vols fan, so it was a tough day. Okay, then we're on to the Falcons Giants yesterday. I'm just gonna whip through them real quick. Oh, he was reaching for the ball. Where is it? Oh, right there.
That's pretty good.
But I mean, nice, bright, crisp. The colors are vibrant. I didn't do any color correction. I mean, they're nice, vibrant.
I like that. Yeah, I like that too. Who won?
The Giants won.
So neither
I'd
team you were
rather
shooting for.
not.
So you're no longer allowed to shoot
not
for
only
any
the teams
teams.
that I was shooting for. All of my teams lost yesterday. Every team I follow, the Bears, the Bucks, everybody lost. Lost. It was a very bad day. All right,
Lord.
so
Okay, so that brings us to a spot where we see the pictures, we take a look at this stuff.
Can I show you one more?
Sure,
thing?
go
Do you
right
mind?
ahead.
I'm
No,
sorry.
go right
but
ahead.
I missed something very important.
Okay. No.
I want to show you. I got in the locker room with the Vols.
Oh,
and
okay.
so I did get to take a look at this. Can I just show you these real quick?
Sure.
So here we go. Let's take a look. This is
Behind the scenes.
inside the Vols
Portraiture.
locker room. Yeah. Just catching
I like that shot.
shots.
I like that shot a lot.
Ready? These are 16,000 ISO. Seriously, they are 16,000.
I double checked myself.
This is 16.
They are.
I showed RC before we went on.
All right.
16,000.
Now zoom in.
Is there noise?
I want to see the noise. I want to see the noise.
There is noise. If you go all the way in, that was unfortunate. Very unfortunate zoom. Quick, move the
Wow.
hand.
We
Move,
call
move.
Stop
that-
grabbing
I'm
them.
sorry.
We call that the noisy nipple.
Don't grab them.
Oh, okay. Let it load here. It's loading. All
Like a
right.
drink name.
So yeah, here's a better place to see the noise.
Yeah.
Right? Now we're zoomed
Much
way
better.
in. Yeah, we're zoomed way in. But this is 16,000. Now here's the thing. And I saw a lot of people asking questions. We're going to answer some here in just a minute. But a lot of people are asking, well, how does it compare to the 1DX? It's not as good as the 1DX.
It's not supposed to be.
The noise is not as
Seventh of
good.
the price?
It's a $5,000 difference between the 7D Mark II and the 1DX. This is the little brother.
That's a used Hyundai difference.
Yeah, this is the little brother. But can I tell you something? When I shot before, until I actually got to shoot a football game, I had heard directly from Canon, they were like, yeah, it's the little brother. It's an older brother than I thought. It's like a teen. It's like a more mature.
It's like where you thought the difference was going to be this
like
much.
this. There's less of a difference than I was expected. Anyway, it's amazingly good.
Okay.
But 16,000, because I think this is what 400 looks like on a 7D. I think just based on what people were saying.
But see, and that's the part that I thought was interesting because people are like, 400 introduces a whole bunch of noise. And now for me, and again, this is anecdotally, as a photographer, we're not talking about measuring and distances and what the type of noise is.
Right.
If I were looking at this as a photographer, and I'm going to zoom back into this one section, I would probably say, I could print that.
Yeah, no, I haven't sharpened these. These are out of the camera. I haven't done any noise reduction. By the way, I don't do noise reduction, but unless I'm making a large print. If I'm making a large print, I might consider noise reduction.
Right.
But look, this is full screen on a 15-inch laptop, and looking at it, we had to zoom in to see the noise.
Right.
At 16,000.
I would take a look at it and I would go, that's acceptable. I can use that. I can use that.
Oh, these are all very usable.
So, I
And
thought
this is without. Now, if you wanted to, and this was a raw image, you could run Lightroom has really good noise reduction. You could run it. I just don't. I don't run noise reduction on anything.
But if you wanted a moment, those are really good moments to have at 16,000.
Yeah, you can't. Hey, there's me. Yay! Hey, look, I got a monopod.
Okay.
So anyway, I went a little too far on the list here. But this is the locker room's very, very dark. There's just a little light over each player. So you can see the lights like above his head. There's just it's pretty dark, and I'm getting it's exposing for the room, so it's kind of bringing out stuff. But I got to tell you, I was very surprised. The 1600 that I shot with the wedding, I thought, this is good.
I think at this point you expect 1600 to be good.
But
you don't expect 16,000.
Yeah, but I mean, I think
good.
for a crop sensor.
For a crop
because
sensor.
I've had some crop sensor. I've had a number of crop sensor cameras, and literally, 4 was the roof. Every once in a while, you could go to 8, and you're like holding your breath.
Right.
But dude, I was at 16,000. Now, I didn't go and dial in 16,000. The auto ISO said there's not enough light
But I
here
remember being
for the
there,
shutter speed that I chose.
And you shot some, and you looked at it, and you're like, "What ISO is this?" And you look, and you're like, "Am I looking at this wrong? Is there an extra zero there?"
Yeah, I'm showing Brad. Is that 1600 or 16,000? It is 16,000.
But it's not just, I think that also it's not just about the ISO that you're getting when you're getting a camera like that, but like you're also shooting the fact that this is going into an APS-C camera. That's a 1.6 crop when you're doing that. But that even opens up something else when you're working with this.
So here's what it really comes out with. So I had somebody ask me the question. So Scott, which would you rather have, the 7D Mark II or the 7D Mark II or the 1DX?
Right.
Well, I mean, one of them is a $7,000. So you know what the big difference is? It's a trade-off. The 7D Mark II, the 1DX, the high-end model.
Okay.
Is better at noise. It's a full frame sensor. And I think one of the biggest things that full frame sensors do is low noise. That's why everybody wants a full frame. One of the main reasons why people want the technology for full frame sensors is where the low noise is.
Right.
So it's hard to compare a crop sensor camera to the best in the world at noise. Like, which camera is the best in the world at noise? I think it's the 1DX.
Okay.
So you're taking a camera that's $1,700 and saying, well, is it as good as the noise in there? No.
Right.
No, it's not. Is it the best noise I've ever seen in a crop sensor camera? Oh, God, yes.
Right.
Absolutely. Unbelievably so. So yesterday, the reason why I had 1,000 ISO picture was he was in the shade. Later in the day, even though there's a highlight on the side of Manning's face, and when I say Manning, not Peyton, on Manning's face, I wasn't metering off the side of his face. I'm metering on his jersey.
No, I'm just messing with you. I know that.
RC does not know a lot about football, but he does know that they're Mannings. There's 2 of them, Bob and Peyton.
That's it. It is. It's Bob.
Eli. By the way, Eli's Super Bowl MVP, I think twice. So.
Now, so that's why you went up on ISO.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay.
You're seeing, why are you shooting in the middle of the day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 3:30 in the afternoon? Why are you shooting at 1,000 ISO? Because I had to have 1,000 shutter speed in the shade. And so it cranked up to 1,000.
Okay.
I have some more examples. I know I'm spending too much time on the noise thing, but everybody cares about the noise. But can I tell you, here's the trade-off. So the noise is better on the 1DX. No doubt about it. If you shoot indoor events, like if you do gymnastics or basketball or anything else, hands down, you can't touch the noise on a 1DX. Here's the trade-off. The 1.6. Dude, I'm not joking to you. I'm going to see if I can show you this picture. I'm sitting in the end zone, and I can shoot Manning at the 17-yard line and fill the frame.
And that's,
The
I think,
other 17-yard line.
The farthest, not of course the one in front of me, all the way across the field. I took a shot from the Vols game, and just as an example, I'm going to find it while RC's talking here.
There are two 17-yard lines on the field.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's one on each end. So I took a shot in the end zone of one, and I went all the way into the locker room through at the other end of the Vols field. So it's 100 yards plus 20 and 20, and into the locker room, and it's full frame. In the other end zone.
But
because
see,
this gets you 60% closer. This lens, this 70 to 200, now becomes a kick butt football lens because it's 320 mil. I think it's 320.
Something like that, sure.
You got a phone? Can you do the math? Okay. You got a calculator?
Maybe.
I think it's 320.
right.
Dude, 320 is good.
But I think, here's what I liked about when you were talking. When obviously, like Scott comes in and he
you're
talks
right,
to me
320.
about
Brad's confirmed.
you came and you talked to me today about wanting to answer some questions or do most of that stuff. But I thought that where it hit home for me, and this is like I'm a person, I don't get football, I don't understand it. I know that they're running around chasing each other, but
That's good. They're running around chasing each other.
But
They
what
are.
I thought was
A lot of that.
interesting for me was the fact that I know from a portrait standpoint that I would use a 70 to 200 to do something. And I know that if I were to do that in football, because I did it once, I shot a football game, I showed up with a 70 to 200 on one camera, and they were like, forget it. You're not going to get anything with this unless you're, I don't know, within 20 yards or something like that.
Right.
You're pretty much out of the game because photographically what you're trying to do is you're trying to make sure that everything is big, there's a lot of detail, and this, that, and the other. And I was just like,
Yeah,
well, this
everything's
kind
gotta
of
be tight.
sucks because now the next lens that I have to get is like a $5,000 lens if I wanted to start with something like this. Now you have something like this that does 1.6 where you could take the same lens, the same 70 to 200 that I'm using,
Yeah.
and do that.
Yeah, take a look on screen.
So-
So check this out. I am in the opposite end zone. Now you got to realize that locker room where you see locker. I wish you could see the word above it because it does say Peyton Manning.
Yes, it
So
does.
Peyton Manning is evolved. So that's the Peyton Manning locker complex. I'm not just in the other end zone. I am then behind the buffer for video and then behind the buffer for photographers. I am as far away from that other end zone, and this is with a 400 millimeter lens with a 1.4 tele, and this is the uncropped shot all the way across the field. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And see, that's where this camera, I think, because it is a crop sensor, that makes it rule. That's because lenses are very expensive. They just are. Long lenses cost a lot of money. So when you can take the lenses that you have and have a camera body that's $1,795? $1,795, I think.
Yeah,
$1,799.
$17.99.
$17.99, something like
Right.
that. That kind of money and have that kind of reach, the money comes back to you immediately because you're not going to have to buy. If you buy a full frame, if you buy a 1DX, which is $7,000,
$7,000.
you buy around almost $7,000.
$67.99.
Yeah. So if you buy a 1DX, you need to buy full frame lenses.
So all of the lenses that you had on an APS-C side are gone because you
gotta
can't
buy,
use them.
You got to buy new lenses for full frame to take advantage of full frame.
Right.
To take advantage of full frame and still have the same megapixels and all
Right.
that stuff. So then,
So it's 5,000 plus.
You put a 400 millimeter f2.8 on there, you add another $10,000.
Right.
So you're at $17,000 for a body and a lens. This is why, and I think people thought I was excited about it because I've switched to Canon and I like Canon gear. I'm excited about this because this is going to put a real quality sports camera and wildlife camera into the hands of people that never had an opportunity to shoot 10 frames per second at a 1.6 crop factor with noise that's pretty, I'm going to say pretty darn good. It's amazingly good. The best crop sensor noise I've ever seen. You saw it on here.
The math that I thought was cool for me, and I was doing this in the office, was just like, I was like, so you could buy this thing instead of buying the 1DX, obviously, if you wanted that one, but you could save yourself $5,000 right off the bat, and you can use some of that $5,000, buy that 70 to 200,
Oh, yeah.
Now, all of the APS-C lenses that you have previously could work, and you have a lens that gets you that far into the game. And I think that's...
Well, that wasn't shot with the 7200. That was shot with the 400.
Okay.
But like a bunch of the shots that I showed earlier, when I went through that slideshow, were shot with the 7200. A bunch of them, and it used to come to a point where the 7200 was my inside the 20 lens. But now I can, I'll wait a lot longer. I mean, because I can go further. I can go to the 30 and the 40 yard line, zoom in, and it still looks good. Plus, you have enough megapixels here.
And if you want to spend another 500 and throw a 1.4 teleconverter on it, get the 1.4 times the 1.6.
All right, can you do that math real quick?
Yes.
All right.
All right. So now you've talked about a lot of things here. The high frames per second. You've talked about the noise. You've shown real examples, and obviously all of these examples can also be downloaded on here.
The blog, right? Yeah.
You can download them right here.
Yeah.
So that's fine. The print quality was really, really good. Obviously,
The print quality's amazing.
You're going to be talking about all of the good things.
It's pretty good.
But were there bad things? Were there things that you didn't like? Were there things that you wish would have?
There were a couple things I would definitely change. So Brad, 450 millimeters. You're on this body and a 1.4 telly. This becomes a 450.
It's pretty good.
That's the whiskers of a lion.
That's the whiskers of the lion.
3,000 total or under 3,000 instead of 10.
Yeah. So there's a lot of advantage. Okay, so it was weird because right before we started this broadcast, right before, I got a call from a great tech at Canon, and I said, I can tell you what my main complaint is, because it's not the speed, 10 frames per second.
What's that sound like, by the way?
10 frames per second? It sounds something like this. All right. So the 10 frames is not. You know what was interesting? So I saw somebody made a comment, and they're like, "Well, how does it feel? It feels like a pro camera. The build of this is great."
Yeah.
But can I tell you what to get though? Get the grip.
Okay.
Because number one, you look kind of weenie out there. You're the only person with what looks like a consumer camera.
With the foot on this, the lens technically looks bigger than the body.
Yeah, you got to get the grip, so it's like, I've got a big camera.
And does that stuff matter? Yes.
Yes, it does. I also like the feel of it, because you know what happens? They look at your camera and they see it doesn't have a grip, and they're like. So anyway, you don't want to get bossed around in the photo workroom, but I would definitely get the grip. Second thing is, this is my big thing, was I'm used to the battery on the 1DX.
Right.
When you buy this camera, buy a second backup battery right then and there, because on the first day, I'm shooting one battery. It's fully charged at the beginning of the day. I'm shooting, rootin' tootin', right? So at the end of the game literally ends. I have two bodies, one here, one there. The Gators win. Bench explodes. They're going crazy, and I'm right there because I realize they're going to win. I mean, it's like there was a minute left, and
it was obvious.
It was obvious. They're winning, so I'm all set. I switch out to a 16 to 35 lens, so I can get people freaking out and going crazy. I get 3 shots off, and the battery is completely dead. I hadn't been paying attention, and the battery's dead. So now I have a 400 on a monopod, and I'm trying to switch. So I would say battery life, you need a second battery. The next day, Brad, as he's leaving, listen to me. At halftime, there's a fully charged battery in there. You switch it, right?
Yep.
Brad was really giving me the heat about it, and I did, no problem.
Right.
But I'm telling you right now, if you're going to be
one
shooting
extra battery will
sports-
get you good.
Oh, yeah.
You'll be started.
because it
One
uses the
battery will
5D
last
Mark
most
III
of the
battery.
game, but you want to change it at halftime before you forget.
Yeah, and if you have a 5D Mark III, it uses the same battery,
Yeah.
which is nice. They don't make you buy some
70D,
weird battery.
5D.
But I'm spoiled because the battery in the 1DX will go forever. It will go for a lifetime.
But it's
You
also
can shoot 2 games.
physically bigger.
Yeah,
right?
that's the little battery right there.
The 1DX battery.
The 1DX battery's a load.
So it's smaller, which
Right.
means you'd have to consider that.
All right. So the thing that
All right.
was my biggest complaint about it is not the battery. My thing that was a complaint is this, and this is a workflow thing. And I wrote a whole book on sports workflow, and my workflow uses Photo Mechanic and Lightroom.
Right.
And everybody uses, all professional sports. They all use. If you go into a photo workroom and you see 60 laptops, you see 60 copies of Photo Mechanic. One of the things that Mechanic does is this. So you're out there shooting, right? and you see a shot, you go, oh, that's good. You hit the lock button on the back of your 1DX. There's actually a little button with a lock on it. You hit the lock button and it tags that photo. So as you're going through the day, between each play, you have 24 seconds. You shoot, you go, look, And Canon is amazing. This speed, the dial on the back, you can't believe how fast you can go through your images. Because let's say you take a burst of 30, 40 images. Well, you want to get back to where, the
Right.
quarterback passed or whatever, the receiver
moment.
catches, the key moment, the peak moment of action. You can go to get there real quick. But what was my point?
You were talking about from there.
You couldn't figure out how to tag
lock.
on this.
But I couldn't figure out. But no, so in Photo Mechanic, what it'll do is it'll automatically, when you go back later, it'll show you the one you tagged. That's why it's so important to
Tagged
tag it on
images
the
show up
field.
first.
So what was the
They
problem
show
with
up
that?
first. I could not find a way to tag images on here. There's no lock button on the back.
Okay.
And so there's a rating button which gives it like a star.
Yeah, the more you push it, the more stars it gets.
Yeah, it gives you more stars. And I found a way where in Photo Mechanic you could go select all
this
one
many
star
stars.
and then sort. It was like really, really clunky. Right before we started the broadcast, Rudy, who's just this genius guy at Canon, calls me up and goes, you can go in the menu and make the rate button the lock button. And so all you do is hit it. So that was my biggest complaint. It was really my only complaint. The battery life could use a little bit. The buffer's actually pretty good.
There is one gripe on when you're playing back and you're rotating.
Okay, but this isn't just for this one because I got the same gripe on the 1DX. But
All right, let's just air it out now.
Look, you're not shipping it yet, Canon. Freaking fix this, all right? So hear me out. They've already heard me. I've complained to Canon to death about this, but I'm now going to complain
On a daily basis.
On a daily basis, all right? So you take a shot, all right, and you look at it on the back of your camera.
Good.
It automatically, if you have image review on, it comes.
If you have an image review, it pops up, and I always have image review on. If you take a burst of 30 images, it shows you the last image. Do I ever want the last image in a burst of 30?
Probably not.
No, because what you're doing is you're following the player all the way to the end, and he gets tackled, and then he gets up. You got to stay on him because he might do some jubilation. He might, go crazy, pump up, whatever. You want to make sure you get it, but they don't always do that. They rarely do that. They get up and they take the ball and they toss it to the ref. And so the last shot is a guy like this.
Right.
You got to go back like 30 or 40 images. Here's my complaint. Canon, are you listening? Here's what I want you to do. When that image comes up, number 30, and it's a bad one, I can't use the wheel and scroll back. You won't let me do it until they hit the play button.
And then you can.
Then you can scroll them back.
Stop that.
That ain't right.
Or make it an option.
Make it an option. Let me choose. Go into the menus and say, I want to take a button. But it's not a 7D Mark II thing. That is
It's a Canon thing.
It's a Canon thing. Canon, come on. Because, and that's what's so interesting. Everything about the camera is built for workflow until you get there. It's like, you're going to make me press an extra button? So now at the game, I realized that you could tag things, and I was doing it the slow way. I did not know you could attach it. Right. Those were the main things. I wrote down a couple other things. Is there anything else about it? The battery grip. There's one other thing. While I got Canon, the auto ISO goes from like 1,000 to like 1,600. I want 1,250. Like the minimum shutter speed, the minimum. So I said I want to see what it jumps.
Keep talking. It's going to take me.
It's got quite a little jump in it. Well, it goes from like 1,000 to 1,500 or something. I would like a couple more increments in there, and obviously you can do it. It's just software. And so this is what I love. So on my 1DX, Canon did a huge free firmware update with like 30 new features. Anybody else would have released it as a camera.
So your shutter speeds go from
1,000 to 2,000 minimum shutter speed.
You just want something in the middle.
I need a couple more things in the middle. I could use 300. I could use 1,000. 1,300.
If it's a shutter speed, make it an option. How about that?
Yeah.
Because for me, like if I'm shooting concerts, I'd like to have maybe 1/60th instead of 1/25th or 2/50th.
Yeah. So
just minor things.
Yeah, a little. But those are. I mean, I'm kind of nitpicking, but I will say this. You know what I loved? How quiet the shutter is. Now there's also a silent shutter mode, and I was in the locker room and I'm going, click. I mean, this is the full loudness of it. That ain't very loud.
Yeah.
You were in the locker room using the silent mode. Donald actually was standing there. Donald's the UT sports photographer.
Big Daddy.
He looks at me. He's like, "Is he shooting anything?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah, it gets really quiet. All right. So that was it. But I at the end of the day, I think you're going to see that the noise is the most amazing you've ever seen on a crop sensor. Period. Number two, I think that the 1.6 crop factor, I don't think people realize how great that is. And I'm coming from a full frame, and so when they this goes back today, and I'm back to my 1DXs, I don't want to complain. They're amazing cameras, and their ISO is unmatched. But when I get to now, I'm back. I'm losing 60% of my reach.
Right.
That's what's so the fact that they made this a crop sensor, because they could have just said, let's make another sports camera,
right,
and let's make it full frame. I think they did the right thing by not doing that.
And I think that on a social standpoint, again, just getting a little bit more esoteric about it, I think it's actually neat that they did it for everybody else. Look, there's not, I mean, you shoot Vols and you shoot NFL, but I mean, how many dads out there are out there shooting high school games?
Oh,
or
dude,
sports
this
games,
is
middle school
or
games.
sports games,
Yeah.
middle school games.
Oh, dude,
it's like
this is
there's
it.
so many different people that are doing that kind of stuff that the barrier of entry for shooting sports, you shouldn't have to have the same gear the NFL to be able to shoot a soccer game.
Yes, that's what that.
Quote of the day.
No, but this is it. He just encapsulated it in the best way I've heard why I'm so excited. And I haven't been able to articulate it as well as you just did. You shouldn't have to have NFL pro quality gear to get great shots of your kid's high school football game.
And now you don't have to.
And now you don't have to.
Well,
that is what it is.
And honestly, like when
That's
you're shooting,
what it is right there.
When you're shooting those smaller games, the lights aren't as good, so you almost have to have better gear than what the NFL guys are
yeah,
using.
the NFL guys have pretty good lights.
So they do-
But your high school football Friday night lights, man. It's
So I thought that that part was pretty cool, and I thought that the fact that not only that, but they also set themselves up to a point where they have all of these different lenses. They have all of the different lenses that are
Yeah.
available to that.
Hey, I want to read just. We're going to hit some questions real quick, and I know that we're going long, but that's how we roll.
Hey, it's your blog. You can do
We
what you
roll
want.
long. It's my blog. We can just go crazy. I asked people for their questions. We're just going to read. You don't have to show this on screen. We're just going to read them here. We've got plenty of comments. Okay, so this one, it's probably too obvious, and on the other hand, difficult to test. The autofocus performance in comparison to the 5D3 and the 1DX. I thought the autofocus performance was really, really good. Is it exactly as fast as the 1DX? I don't think it's probably quite as fast as the 1DX, but it's not $5,000 slower, I can tell you. It was,
Right.
I mean, I really didn't feel like a big lag or anything. I was expecting to really feel a difference. When I started shooting with it, I wasn't really feeling that difference. And I think if you did a lab test, they would probably show that the 1DX is faster.
Okay, I'm going to read these. I'm going to read these while you're going
but
through.
speed-wise, not of any
Was there
concern.
something that was lacking, something that was general? But most of the lacking was very, very minor.
Yeah, I can nitpick it. I mean, that was little pretty nitpicky stuff. You know what I do like? I haven't used it yet, but there's a little toggle switch that you can just pull down. It's like a lever. It's a lever is what it is. And you can assign it to all kinds of different stuff. I haven't figured out what I want to assign it to yet, but it's cool that it's
So let's
there.
just take it. So David Lambert had asked that. Ian Henchcliffe had said build quality. You
the
thought was
build
really,
quality
really
is
good.
outstanding. This is a
Magnesium alloy.
thank you.
Yeah.
You have been a
Weather
great
sealed.
help today.
I've been
I thought
researching.
It's a magnesium alloy body. The
Weather
body
sealed.
is weather sealed. It's got a gasket and all. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Right.
The build
so
is phenomenal.
high ISO, we've talked about that. Thank you,
Yep,
Jason
we did.
White, for that. Video performance, we haven't done yet.
I don't shoot video.
So it's one of those things. Andrea, we'll get back to you on that. So let's see. If you already have a 1DX as a primary body, would you be satisfied with a 7D Mark II as a second body? Would you prefer to have two 1DX bodies? I think $5,000 extra in your pocket is probably a good thing.
Yeah, you know what? I would have zero problems as this is my second body.
Right.
But you know what? What's weird about it is, I know because I know what you're thinking, right?
Well, when we were on the sidelines, I asked you, what are your thoughts on this so far? Do you want to tell what you said?
I don't remember what I said.
That you forgot that you weren't
Oh
shooting
yeah,
with the 1DX?
you forget because the build is so good. It's so solid. Hey, feel this.
Yeah.
You're
The
like,
build.
dude, I got to be honest.
And
I
you're like,
forgot that.
it's shooting a lot of fast frames, right? That you're looking at the noise and it looks good.
Yeah.
You know, you just start to go, holy cow. So at the end of the day,
So buffer, was the buffer?
it's definitely the little brother to the 1DX.
But not
So
too-
buffer was good. We talked about that. It
Buffer's
was about
good.
100.
There was something compared to the 70D. So there's a couple of questions I saw about comparing this to the 70D. This is a camera for a different market than the 70D. I have a 70D. The 70D has amazing video. It's got a touch screen. You swipe, you zoom in. this is for, while you can shoot anything with it, I think this was designed with the 10 frames per second, the 1.6, all that. This was designed for sports and wildlife, for action. So I wouldn't say if you have a 70D, you should get this, unless you decided to become a sports and action photographer. Then I would go, oh yeah, you'd want to get this.
Okay.
But that's the difference between, and some people are asking me some questions like, how do you compare this to the Mark IV? I'm like, I don't know. The
1D Mark IV?
Yeah.
We didn't have one.
We don't have one. But can I tell you something? I have a story. I have a story I've never told. Can I tell you the story?
Sure.
So this is a true story. So, I switched to Canon a year ago. But that wasn't the first time I was going to switch to Canon. So a number of years ago, when the Mark IV, the 1D Mark IV just came out, Canon has a local rep on our area, and out of the blue, he called me and just said, "Hey, I'm over in wherever," and I'm like, "Wow, I didn't even know." And he said, "I saw you've been shooting some Bucks games." He says, "Yeah." He goes, "Would you like to try out a Canon 1D Mark IV?" Now I had, I'm going to say, a Nikon 2DX at that point or something. D2X, sorry, and I said, well, yeah, I'd love to try it out because, number one, I was just thrilled that anybody from a camera company was calling me. I was like, this is awesome. So anyway, I went and I shot a Bucks game. In fact, if I can for a second, I'm going to show you the picture. I have a picture.
You have it?
I have a picture of me taken on the sidelines by my buddy Paul Abel. So Paul was the Bucks team photographer at the time. And, I actually know where it's at and everything because it's in the folder. Right here. So hold on this thought.
Is a folder called, oh my God, a camera company called me?
Yeah, it was, well, I can't believe a camera company called me. No, hang on. And I'm going to show you the picture in one moment because it's me on the sidelines with a big, and this is, it's a 1DX, a 1D Mark. All right, here it is. That's me. Ka-chow. EOS, I can't read it, but it was a 1D Mark IV. All right, so this is me.
How many years ago is this?
I don't know.
It had to have been.
The Bucks were still bad, so it was a while ago.
Well, I've been here 6 years. It was before I came on.
Okay, so it was, we're going to say, I don't know, 7 years. Maybe it was a 1D Mark III.
You're slinging a couple there's a couple of them there. Okay.
Yeah,
all right, cool.
They burned one year. All right, and I only shot one game. So here's the thing. I had been shooting Nikon all this time, and I had a very dear friend, Bill Fortney, who worked for Nikon Professional Services.
Right.
I'm literally doing a workshop with Bill the next week in Montana. We sit down at the workshop, and I call Bill over to the side, and I go, "Bill, I'm switching to Canon." And Bill's like a good friend of mine, and Bill was like, "What?" And I go, "I shot a Canon camera this weekend, and I shot a Bucks game, and I've never experienced anything like that. I'm sorry, Bill. You're my friend, you're my buddy, and I want us to still be friends, but I'm switching to Canon. I'm going to sell all my Nikon gear and buy Canon gear." And so Bill says, "Scott, I can't tell you what's coming, but there's a camera coming that is so good. It's the best thing we've ever built at Nikon. And if you don't change, if you don't switch, I promise you, you will be happy. And if this new camera comes out and you try it out and you don't agree it's the best camera you've ever used, then you switch to Canon. We'll still be friends, no problem whatsoever. But I want you to wait. Will you please wait?" And there are a few people in the world I would have waited for, but Bill was such a good friend. So I said, "Okay, I'll wait." Because, it wasn't an emergency, but it was like I realized that for shooting sports, that was...
You got to follow where the technology is.
Yeah, and I had to follow where the technology was, and I liked it. And it just felt right. Everything about it was so great. A few months later, out came the D3. And the D3 was an amazing camera. It was better at the time than Canon's best. And so I stayed with Nikon.
Right.
So, but I never told that story before, and Bill will tell you because Bill remembers the whole thing.
Now, what's your experience now with the 1DX?
Oh, the 1DX is the best camera ever. Oh my God! But this is as close to a 1DX as you're going to get.
And that is the point, I think, with this entire thing. It's not that you're looking at a camera that happens to be $5,000, that happens to be out of the reach, that happens to be something where you can't do it. Everybody can do this. This sits within that same space.
Even if you don't buy it for $1,800, you can rent it for a lot cheaper than a 1DX too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, there's the question from Ahmed Lashin who asked, does the new 7D is considered for an upgrade to the 70D? I don't think
Yeah,
so.
they're
no.
different ones. They're
different for different markets. Yeah.
Autofocus expansion. You were talking to me about that a little earlier.
So this has autofocus expansion. So you know how it's very frustrating, even on high-end cameras. You have your viewfinder, and you have this little square in which you can move your points in, right? And you ever notice like you can't get all the way to the edges and you can't get to the top and the bottom?
You know how many feet I've cropped out because of that?
Or how much headspace?
They
Or
haven't
headspace.
expanded. It goes almost all the way to the edge. It doesn't go all the way to the edge, but almost all the way. Do you know how great that? Well, you know how great that is because you've shot with it. But it's great. It doesn't go all the way to the top and bottom. It's expanded this way, but not all the way. So it's very wide and it's taller, but not all the way to the top and bottom.
Okay.
But it's great. You will love it. You'll be like, I mean, zzz, you can go way over there, way over there. I like that quite a bit.
So we
actually.
talked about shutter noise, which we've reduced, upgrades to the 7D.
How does the crop sensor camera even begin to compare to a full frame?
No, I mean, I think
it's only noise. That's the only thing you can say. Oh, as far as quality goes, the quality is
right.
fantastic.
But more important than this is rather than us kind of tell you about it, the downloads.
Yeah, download some images. Now, I want to tell you, you're going to download, when you go to 100%, you're going to see noise. So don't be like, I thought there was no noise. That's a 1DX. But here's the thing I want you to remember. Where your image is shown, I talk about this on my seminar tour right now. Where your image is shown, really, let's be straight, on the web. What's the biggest you're ever going to see, anyone's ever going to see one of your images on the web? This big.
Right.
At this big, the noise is phenomenal. But what we do as photographers, because we're messed up, is we take that image and we blow it up to a size that no one will ever see and go, yep, there's noise. Right? That's what we do. And then we run noise reduction software, which now makes our photo just a little bit blurry.
Right.
So we have less noise that no one will see anyway.
So at the end of so I think that it does well with noise. I liked what you did there with that print,
Hell, it's just 1,000 ISO.
which I thought was really, really good. So, but at the end of the day, I think you can kind of make a judgment for yourself. You download them.
Yeah,
take a look
download
at
them and take a look.
and see what happens.
I'm going to put a bunch of different images there. You know, I'll put 1,000 ISO. I'll put different ones, and you can.
Will these have metadata on them or no?
They will not. The metadata will be stripped out of these because these are pre-released. They're not. It's not the fully baked thing. They're still baking it.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, was the camera intuitive? I mean, it's pretty much like it's pretty much like another Nikon camera.
Yeah,
From a
Paul
menu.
Cushing asks, how is the menu? The menus are great. They're very much like the 5D Mark III or
7.
yeah. I will say the viewfinder's better because it has a customizable viewfinder.
Right.
You get to ask what you want added inside the viewfinder. You can say, I want to see its JPEG. I want to see what my focus mode is. And you get to choose just the things you want to see. That's kind of a nice feature. I like that. I have about 5 things turned on.
Wi-Fi. What about the concept of Wi-Fi?
Oh, Wi-Fi. This is important. It does not have Wi-Fi because it has a magnesium alloy body.
Doug Seagraves asked that.
Okay, it has a magnesium alloy body, but I think people have a very, like my buddy Jeff Revell wrote about this on his blog, people have a very different idea of Wi-Fi in a DSLR versus Wi-Fi in your cell phone. You don't get a DSLR and you press a button and it goes to the web. That's not how Wi-Fi and DSLRs work. It will be that day one day. But if you buy a DSLR and it has Wi-Fi, that Wi-Fi goes to a closed network. Like it goes from here to an Apple TV or to an Apple router or something. And then someone there will have to get it from you. And from there, they'll have to get an internet connection and send it to the web.
Right.
It doesn't have built-in internet. It has built-in Wi-Fi.
Right.
So you go from here to a photo editor. Because I've seen people talking about not just this camera, but other cameras and going, well, it doesn't have Wi-Fi. You should be able to send it straight to a news desk from the sidelines. You can if you shoot for Sports Illustrated because they have a guy that's sitting there ready to edit. If you shoot for Getty, there's probably a guy sitting there waiting for your images to come in.
So this would need an attachment.
But even at the Olympics, they ran Ethernet cables out to the guys. They ran hard wires out to the photo pits where these guys were because that Wi-Fi thing, while it sounds really cool, is really a dream because just understand, I'll just put it this way, you don't have internet in your DSLR.
Right.
Like you do in your phone.
Right.
Which brings up an interesting question. Would you be willing to pay $50 a month for a Wi-Fi connection here to actually do it? Probably not.
No.
Depends on who you're shooting for.
Well, no, if you're a pro, the company will pay for it. But anyway, but I think when people ask that Wi-Fi question, they're thinking, can I shoot a shot and it goes directly to Facebook or Flickr or a news service? No.
But see, and I think to that point,
Even if you have Wi-Fi.
I think that what happens is I don't think it's necessarily that it's been ignored. It's just that it's not part of that market segment. Because if you take a look at the 70D, which happens to be very consumer, very open facing, that one does have Wi-Fi because it doesn't have a magnesium alloy battery.
Right.
So in that space, you're trading ruggedness and weather sealedness and the build quality from Wi-Fi, which is something that you would sporadically use in that
But
case.
you would sporadically use with somebody that is there to help you.
Exactly.
In other words, it's complicated still.
Exactly.
All right, I'm gonna ask a question.
Yeah.
What you keep saying it has a magnesium alloy body, so it doesn't have Wi-Fi. What's the connection there?
Interference.
It won't go. It won't get through the metal. And I talked to Canon about this, and they said, look, we didn't want to put out a camera with crappy Wi-Fi that didn't work, because all you'd say is, oh, the Wi-Fi is terrible, and so it doesn't really, So they're like, look, to put it in this kind of a build, and the build is phenomenal, to put it in this kind of build that's going to hold up through wildlife, through sports, and we're rough. Oh my gosh, we're rough on.
You're dropping camera bodies and lenses left and right on the field.
I dropped my 16 to 35 twice in one day. Anyway, yeah, we're rough on them. Hey, the guy Paul asked the same question: is it worth the cost? Is it worth the cost? I think that this. Okay, I'm going to go all the way back to the first time Canon said, Scott, we want to talk to you about this camera. We want to get your thoughts on it and all. And one of the things was, what do you think the price should be? And they told me what they were thinking. And I said, that's great, but you're never going to release it at that price. I thought, when he told me what the specs were, I said, there's no way it's going to come out at that price. And I figured that, because it's one thing to say, we're going to price it at this, and then later it comes out at $17.95, and you're like, They did. They kept it at $17.95, and I was a big proponent of that. Every time I talked to him, I go, keep it. Don't go over 2,000. If it goes over 2,000, it changes everything.
Right.
If you can keep it under 2,000, I thought it would come in at $19.99, but it's $17.99, so that's pretty good.
Now, there was something else in here, like review histograms on camera. There's focus performance. Now, it's also important, or I would like to know about metering patterns. Hal Mola, we're going to be doing classes on this. So at one point, we will have a class
This is
on
not an
Kelby-1.
in-depth.
Yeah, this is just a field report. This isn't a tech thing. We will have a whole class on this. Because at Kelby Training, we have this thing, not Kelby Training, that's the old name, Kelby-1. We have this thing called Beginner Start Here.
Right.
You go and say, I'm interested in sports, I have a 7D Mark II, and whatever, and it builds a curriculum for you.
Right.
And part of the curriculum will be exactly how to use this particular camera body.
Right.
And we don't have it just for Canon, we have it for Sonys and for Nikons and for Canons. So whatever, we're working on all the latest builds right now. So if a new camera comes out, we immediately do a class on it to show you all that stuff.
Right. So for those of you who have asked questions, very specific questions on how to be able to use buttons and dials and controls and things like that, make sure that you go to kelby1.com. That's the place where you're
don't go
gonna see
there
most of that
now because the camera's not out and neither is the class out. But when the camera comes out,
We'll let you know.
are going to have the class ready to go right for you. So you unbox it, you go to Kelby1 and you watch your thing. Okay. Just a couple more questions that we're going to go. 1DX versus a 7D Mark II is the same question. Again, I own a 1DX. The 1DX is still a better camera. I mean, just look, it is the best camera I think ever. So it's really hard. Best DSLR ever.
Here you go, Lauren Collicutt. Exposure compensation in manual with the auto ISO turned on.
So I think they're asking, Brad, speak to exposure compensation in manual with auto ISO turned on.
It works.
Hooray!
How many stops can you go?
I think the exposure compensation goes 5 stops either way.
Nice.
So
Cool.
Nice.
And then do you want to touch on the bracketed shots, RC?
Yeah, it does a maximum of 3 stops of exposure across 7 frames.
Right.
So you can do 1, 3, 5, 7.
All right, image sharpness compared to 7D Mark I, I have no idea. Okay, here's one from the dark side. How about this is what he wrote. I'm not saying that. How about a comparison to Sony's A77 II?
One of the things that I think is not problematic, but Sony's putting out great cameras these days. The challenge that they're having right now isn't so much on the camera as it is the lenses.
The lenses. Canon's lenses are really what set them apart. Canon has 300 millimeters, 400 millimeters, 200 to 400. Canon has built lenses specifically for sports.
Right,
and they're so sharp. And there's other camera companies. Of course, Nikon has sports ones, but other camera the lens selection just falls off a cliff.
Right, and I think that when you make a purchase on a camera like that, Darren, a lot of the times is you're not just buying a camera, you're buying a camera and you're buying whatever solution you can get from a lens standpoint. And I think that in that, Canon does have the advantage over the Sony in the breadth of the selection that they have.
Absolutely.
So
the other thing is, if you were to show up at a pro football game, even a college football game, with that little Sony, another photographer or a group of them will beat you up. I mean, there's just like, you cannot show up with that. Seriously, if you showed up at a college game on the sidelines.
Well, he was talking about the Alpha 77, the translucent camera. Like, it's a good camera. It's just,
I'm not saying it's not a good camera. I'm just saying your personal safety is an issue. It's always an issue. You ever been on the sidelines of a game? It's a testosterone-laden something. Wow. You show up with that little camera, your little fist will be pounding. All right. And let's see if there's anything else, too. Is there much advantage to upgrading from the old 7D?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, this is honestly my overall impressions of it are, I knew it was a great camera. It worked better, way better than I expected. I knew it was the little brother. It's an older little brother than I thought it was. Nice. It's an awesome camera, but RC really touched upon it earlier, is what makes this so special. Is now you've got a camera that will let you don't have to have the NFL gear to shoot your high school game, to shoot your daughter's play, to shoot, softball and all these kind of things. I think this is going to put, and that's what I was trying to say in all the launch when we first announced it the day it came out. Is that's what I wish you had said that to me before, because that's what it was. So many people are just left out of the game. I remember talking with Peter Reed Miller, and we were having dinner, and Peter said, "Are you going to eat that?" No, Peter said, "Are you going to have that biscuit?"
Bring it.
Peter says he does these hands-on workshops. In fact, I think he's actually doing one this week in Atlanta. Or is it this week?
Yes.
And I went to one, and they're just outstanding. But anyway, so he says people show up, and they show up with like a 5D Mark III, or they show up, which is a great camera. And he says, you have a really, really great camera for everything but sports. And he's like, you know what? Your Canon Rebel probably isn't really going to get it done. You know what I mean? It's like, and he says, I feel bad for these people because they've spent a lot of money on their camera, but it's not the right camera for sports. And I can't say to them, you really need a $7,000 body.
With a $5,000 lens.
And actually, if you're going to be shooting sports seriously, you need two bodies. You need $14,000.
Just in bodies.
You can get two of these for a little more than one 5D Mark III.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I'm so excited about this. I'm so passionate about it. It's not because I switched to Canon and now I love everything that Canon does. I love what it is. I switched to Canon and I see them doing something
for everybody else.
For everybody else, that this is the kind of camera that I shot 2 games with, and once I was shooting, Brad said it, I lost track of the fact that I wasn't shooting a $7,000 body.
Okay.
And so I think that's why I'm genuinely, I think it's an incredible value. And you know what? The 70D is also, I would always tell people, they come to my workshops and they're like, what camera should I get? Get a 70D, you'll love it. Oh yeah, 70D. But the 70D was great but I wouldn't say, if they said you're shooting sports, I'd be like, oh.
Now it's time for you to rent.
Yes.
But now they got one that's amazing for the money.
Now, when these cameras are going to go back, when the production cameras come out, will you do the same type of review, the same type of field test, and bring stuff online to share with people on the blog?
Oh yeah, dude, I have zero reservations about it. I was wondering how it was going to hold up at a college and pro game. Absolutely fantastic.
Perfect.
So yeah, I have no reservations about it. You know what I do want to do? I want to pop up look at what it's got that you will never find on it won't pop up.
It's not on.
It's not on.
There you go.
Built-in flash. You know how much I love built-in flash? Anyway.
I can't wait to get my hands on it. And
so that's it. Thanks for everybody who, and we didn't get to everybody's questions because a lot of your questions I'm not a super technical guy. So when you asked me about the dynamic range of the chip,
You're asking the wrong guy.
That's not your cup of tea.
It's a lot. It's good. The pictures look pretty.
But I think at the end of the day, rather than, you don't know, but you do offer something that people can make their own judgments on. You can just take a look at the JPEGs. Yeah,
take a look at the pictures. I'm going to post, I'm posting them here on the blog. So pull them down, take a look, and
make your own decisions.
Hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you, Brad, and thank you, RC, who wins the Articulation Award of 2014. Well, I've been having a hard time with that. I really was like, you said it, you know, you don't have to have NFL Pro gear and spend that kind of money to still get great images.
Yeah.
And
And
so
that's actually that's Canon doing well by their people.
Yeah, that was a really smart move on their part. And so anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this little field review, and hats off to everybody at Canon for releasing this camera, and please fix the two things I asked about. But outside of that, take care, everybody.